it's Neil from Mindlocks again, just doing another video for Mental Health Week 2020. First of all, hope obviously with lockdown everything's going okay. Now, as you've been aware in some of the videos, we've been covering subjects to do with anxiety, and in our last video we covered panic attacks and obviously what the symptoms and things are. So what we're going to talk about today is obviously some of the triggers that can cause that and also cause extreme anxiety in people as well, and have a look at what triggers are. So first of all, what is a trigger? Well, a trigger is something that sets something off. So in the case of anxiety, there's various things, and everybody's very personal in that respect of how their anxiety can be set off, or how a panic episode or attack can be set off as well. So we're going to run through 11 of those, touch on them very briefly, and then we'll look at ways to decrease those triggers from causing problems, and also how to deal with them when they are triggered. So the first one we're going to talk about is just general health. So obviously looking after yourself is very important for anxiety. It goes hand in hand that exercise and mental well-being go hand in hand. So obviously if you're lacking in exercise or general health, or your general health condition isn't very good, then obviously try and get it seen to. Me myself, I'm not a health professional, so obviously make sure you're getting advice from the doctor there. The second one could be medication. A lot of people that suffer from anxiety or other mental health problems are on medication. I've been on them included, and I've been through the worst and the best of it, so I know that sometimes the medication hasn't worked and it's actually made me worse. It is very much a trial and error thing, and obviously you need to speak to your doctor or GP about that as well. Number 3 is caffeine and other substances. Now I'm going to do a separate video on things to do with substance abuse and talk about that and see what effects that has. But caffeine plays a major role in anxiety, and while it's fine in moderation, extreme use of caffeine, and obviously in today's world these energy drinks that are high in caffeines, taurines and guanines are really bad for setting off anxiety and can act as a trigger. Number 4 is meals. So if you're junk eating, it's another thing that goes in hand with mental health. You should really try and improve your eating over time and stick to a regular routine. It can help balance everything out. Number 5 is negative thoughts. So there's the whole mindfulness part of anxiety as well, where we're trying to have positive thoughts all the time and keeping our brain in a good space to stop the anxiety. And we'll touch a bit on that when we talk about how we deal with these triggers as well. Number 6 can be finances. Obviously, with everything happening to us now, money can be a real trigger for anxiety. It's something, again, you can get advice from and obviously speak to people about. I know me, myself, and a lot of other people are very anxious to speak to people about money, but trust me, it's a very good thing to do, to speak to either somebody that's completely impartial or speak to your family and friends about it to get advice on it, to obviously try and keep your finances in check, because it's one of those things where if anxiety becomes worse, your finances can be then impacted by it, and it just spirals out of control. Number 7 is parties and other social events, things like that. I know when my anxiety was very bad, and other people's was very bad as well, where social settings, going out to pubs, bars, restaurants, etc. was very hard, because obviously you feel like everybody else is staring at you and things like that. But there's things, again, we can put in place to deal with that. Number 8 is conflict. So if you're in a relationship, or if it's a family relationship, or just friends as well, obviously having a conflict with friends can lead you to get all shouty and everything else, and then we can get into long-standing arguments, and that's not a good place to be if you're suffering from anxiety. It might be an idea in those situations to try and step away from the conflict, have a rational think about it to not let your anxiety flare up, or obviously cause panic attacks when you can't deal with it. Take a step aside and try and deal with it in a rational manner. Number 9 is stress. So just in general stress, it could be to do with job, obviously money we've mentioned, other various things that we've mentioned, just high levels of general stress. So it's important to take time out with yourself and obviously try and manage your stress levels as best you can. In this day and age, we obviously get stress meters on smartwatches, on phones, things like that, and it kind of goes hand in hand with sleep as well. Make sure you're getting enough sleep to control your stress levels, and this can stop stress from becoming a trigger to anxiety. Number 10 can be public events. This is one that affected me massively. While I'm a really sociable guy and really love going out and seeing everybody and going to various sporting events, live events, things like that, when I was suffering really badly, anxiety could be triggered and my panic attacks could be really badly triggered just in public, just by being out in the street, seeing other people that I didn't know or thinking that someone was looking at me for the wrong reason. It's really not nice. So it's something that we can deal with, and I'll talk to you, as I said, in a moment about that. Personal triggers, the final one. Everybody's different. Everybody's got their own trigger. It could be a past event where we talk about things like PTSD or social mood disorder or things like that. You know, there's various other factors at play here that can be a trigger. So always bear in mind what your triggers could potentially be. Now that brings me to the next part of this video, where I want to talk about the way in which we stop these triggers or try and deal with these triggers when they are occurring. So the first one is, if you don't know what your triggers are, is trying to keep a journal. So I've kept a journal for quite a while, and I keep a tracker as well, what I eat and how I sleep, etc. on a weekly basis. And I know that if I'm going off what my number should be or where I should roughly be, then I can talk about it in my journal, I can find out why that's the case, and I can try and deal with it before it becomes an issue and causes my anxiety to become worse. And it's really helped me, and I know a number of other people who it's helped as well. The second one, as I've already touched on, is keeping trackers. So find out if you're having panic attacks, if you're having these bad thoughts, try and keep a tracker of them to find out how bad they are. And that goes hand in hand with keeping a journal and everything else, like the first point. 3, it's a big one, it's to seek help. If you are struggling with day-to-day activity and it's causing you to have anxiety, you need to get help. It doesn't have to be from a medical professional. It can be from someone in the family who you can speak to initially, or a friend, or just somebody you know that's impartial. Getting help is the best thing that you can do. If you're not willing to get help, I totally understand. However, if you're someone who knows someone who's in that situation who doesn't want to get help, don't force them, but try and suggest them and coax them into getting help. Things like cognitive behavioural therapy is available, longer term, or psychotherapy, or all these things where they are proven to help treat the causes and triggers of anxiety, and it stops these triggers from causing anxiety symptoms. The fourth point in terms of dealing with triggers is you've got to be honest with yourself. If you know that triggers are causing these situations to arise, then you need to find a way of obviously trying to remove these triggers from your life. Sometimes it can be very, very hard because it could be something that you can't avoid. However, what you can do is put these situations into a time and place where you know you're able to deal with them. And 5, in terms of dealing with triggers and releasing these triggers, is personal. What I say is you've got to have routine. It's very prevalent that doctors say you've got to have routine to try and avoid anxiety. Now, that puts all the triggers into perspective. If you've got a routine day to day, what it means is you can make sure that these triggers are A, not going to come up unexpectedly, or B, they're not going to arise out of the blue or can be avoided altogether. By doing that, you can obviously mold your own day-to-day routines around these triggers to try and deal with them and to cope with them day to day. Hand in hand with that as well is distraction. So for me, I really enjoy being outdoors. I really enjoy getting stuck into little projects and things like that. I know that if I'm suffering from my anxiety and it's peaking and it's getting worse and I'm getting these triggers creeping into my life, what I need to do is I need to take myself away from those situations and do something that distracts me. It's something that you yourself can do. Find something you enjoy, whether it's being outdoors or it's a craft, art, or it's something to do with sport. Try and build these things into your routine, at least on a weekly basis. It will allow the brain time to reset and help this anxiety stop these triggers from obviously causing you further problems. Triggers as a whole are something that it's what sets anxiety off, and it's what you need to focus on trying to deal with in your anxiety treatment longer term, in terms of if these triggers crop up, being able to cope with them and having the mechanisms in place. Okay. Now, in our next video, what we're going to talk about is we're going to go into something very closely related to triggers, and that is phobias. Now, phobias are obviously really extreme ends of anxiety. However, it's something that I want to briefly cover in our video series for this week all to do with anxiety, so that we're fully aware of how that can impact anxiety as well. So all that's left for me to say is obviously mention our chosen charity as well, Health and Mind from Edinburgh in Scotland. Health and Mind deal with mental health services within the city of Edinburgh and for their field in Edinburgh as well, and they provide services for people who are really struggling with day-to-day mental health problems by providing them with support. They also complete a number of fundraising activities where they are raising money to help their services and make them better longer term. So you can donate to them, you can get involved with events with them as well, and it's completely up to you if you want to do that, but I highly recommend getting involved with the charity. Finally, I just want to say thank you for watching our video. Obviously, if you've got any questions, please mail me, but I do suggest that if you have any medical questions that you go to a health professional immediately and obviously deal with them directly. Me, myself, as I've mentioned, I'm not a health professional, I'm just sharing my story. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe and share.